Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show.
First up, today we're going to talk about peace.
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 Peace is something that sounds good,
Yeah.
but isn't always as easy to obtain as you would like for it to be.
You have 3 boys at home.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of peace.
There's no peace.
Can't be. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. I know how little peace there can be. Last week we talked about we talked about hope, and we also talked about how way before Jesus was born, way before he showed up, hundreds of years ago, there were different people who prophesied, who talked about that Jesus was coming, and they talked about who Jesus would be. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to read Isaiah 9:6. This is Isaiah. He's talking to some pretty downtrodden people, and he's talking to them about this wonderful Jesus that is going to show up, and this is what he says.
A child will be born to us, a son will be given to us. He will rule over us. He will be called Wonderful Advisor and Mighty God. He will also be called Father who lives forever and Prince who brings peace.
Prince who brings peace.
I think peace is one of those things that we say and it sounds good and we talk about it at Christmas, but I don't think we ever stop and talk about what peace is.
Yes, and if we look at the early Gospels talking about when Jesus is born, his story of coming into the world did not sound at all peaceful.
No, it didn't.
I had just read some stuff about some crazy birth stories about how people came into the world, like people who had to give birth on an airplane just suddenly.
Yeah.
Or in the back of a taxi.
No.
But think about how Jesus was born. His story is pretty hectic.
Yeah. I'm sure being born in essentially a barn was probably not the plan and probably not easy. Not at all. And he was sent to this world to bring peace, and it doesn't sound like he came into it very peacefully.
You think Mary and Joseph, they were returning home to be counted as it was ordered so that everybody knew how many people lived where. And they get to Bethlehem, and there are no rooms. And Mary is probably very, very pregnant at the time. Jesus could come into this world at any point. And all they wanted was to stay in a room and give birth inside where it's safe. Yeah. And all they had was a manger. That's all they had.
But I feel like that's part of that's a good way to explain peace, as sometimes we hope for things. Sometimes our expectations are not met exactly the way we would want them to be. That can be with something big in your life, or it can be with something little. You can have hoped to receive something on a certain day, and then you find out it's going to be late. You can hope to get to do something fun or go somewhere, and it's outside, and then it rains, and you can't. Sometimes our expectations, no matter how big or small, don't necessarily match our hopes. And I think that's where peace comes in.
And people talk about peace in different ways. Some people talk about peace, like you may think about peace as circumstantial. It's what your circumstances are. So if everything's good at home and everybody's happy and everybody's, watching the football game and everybody's nice to each other,
and your team is winning.
That to you may be peace. But actually, true peace, the peace that the Prince of Peace, Jesus, brings to us, is an inner peace. It's not circumstantial. I can think of times when I remember I was driving. I was on vacation actually, and it was my first car I ever had. I was with my friend Greg, and we ended up getting to Pensacola, where we were about to stay. And just as we got there, my transmission exploded. And
that's not good.
Yeah, there was not circumstantial peace in my heart at all. Of course, I talked to my dad, and he made me feel better about it, and we took care of the car and all of that. And what I noticed is that what I really needed was the inner peace, because outer peace, was kind of going to ruin my vacation. Right. But the inner peace, the trusting in God and knowing that everything is going to be okay, that is what I needed in a moment.
And Jesus came to bring us that peace, and we can have that peace in our everyday life when our expectations don't go the way we want. When life is a little crazy and chaotic and loud and late and busy, we can have that peace on the inside so that we can be calm and we can know that it's going to work out and it's going to be okay and that we're going to be taken care of.
And Jesus' disciples, who went on to do, great things, but Jesus was getting ready to leave this world. He had trained them as much as he could, and they still felt like they really needed his presence to feel safe and feel like they could do what they needed to do. And Jesus says this to them before he is departing, and this is in John 14, verse 27.
It says, I leave my peace with you. I give my peace to you. I do not give it to you as the world does. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid.
And I imagine if I was there and I knew that Jesus, my Savior, was leaving to come back another day, and the world was now in my hands to heal and to feed and to clothe and to, all of those things, I think I would have some anxiety.
Yes.
But to hear, do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid from Jesus himself. That's the inner peace. That's what that is. Jesus didn't change the circumstances of, people eventually tried to come and hunt these disciples down because they didn't agree with their beliefs. Those circumstances were still very scary.
Right.
But he leaves them with this inner peace. And I think at Christmas time, that's what we need.
He leaves us with that inner peace as well.
So think this week about how you can treat your circumstances with inner peace. When things are hectic, as they are around this time of year, I'm sure we've all already experienced some of that. Yeah. Think about your inner peace. Think about how you might act to bring inner peace, the peace that Jesus brings us into this circumstance. What are some things we might do? We might pray.
We definitely pray. Take a little extra time out of your day to read the Bible. Talk to God and see what he has to say to you.
Talk to somebody that you know, who you trust, who would shoot you straight and might bring your anxiety levels down a little bit.
And always, give yourself the time to kind of just take a deep breath and think about things, and instead of getting caught up and upset and emotional, but really think about what the big outcome is going to be.
Absolutely. So how will you bring peace to your life and your family this year? Well, I think that's it for us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.